So thank you so much for listening 13th APW webinar. My name is Yumiko Asayama, Manager of Japan Water Forum and also the Secretariat of the Asia Pacific Water Forum. This webinar is organized as a part of practice of preparation of the Asia Pacific Water Summit held in April 20. So, April 23rd and 24th in Kumamoto City. And today's topic is Iwrm in Asia Pacific. And GWP and their partner will kindly make their presentation and discuss the issue towards the summit and also beyond. So before webinar start, I would like to provide some housekeeping announcement. So if you have any question, please add your question on Q&A box. Then speaker will respond to you during this webinar time or after webinar time. So if you would like to make any comment, but that's not related to question, please add anything on the chat box. And today's webinar is 60 minutes. So if we couldn't have enough time, please kindly allow us to respond to your question after our webinar. So now I would like to invite Mr. Ravi Narayanan, APWF Governing Council Chair, to deliver his opening remarks. So Ravi, floor is for yours.
Thank you, Yumiko. Well, we are embarked on a very important webinar, Accelerating Progress on IWRM in the Asia-Pacific region, as a precursor to the discussions that are taking place before the summit in a couple of months' time in Japan, Kumamoto City. Now, IWRM is a complex subject because it involves institutions, governance, etc., etc. And to add to that, you have the problems of climate change, as another layer of complexity. So it's going to be very important for us to discuss this. I'm conscious of time, so I'm not going to stretch my remarks too much, except to say that last year, GWP, together with UNEP, conducted a study on progress of IWRM in the region, in line with the commitment made by the Asia-Pacific leaders in Yangon at the last summit. This is going to be taken further, and I'm happy to note that there are two specific country programs, Georgia and the Philippines, that are going to present. So with those remarks, I'm going to hand over to Louise, who's going to take us through the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ravi. Let me share my screen first. Yeah. So thank you very much, Ravi, once again for the opportunity and for Asia Pacific Water Forum. And I would like to say hello to everyone that has taken time to participate in this webinar. My name is Louise, and I am a program manager for Global Water Partnership, working in the Asia regions. And I am presenting on behalf of Megan Knight, our senior IWM expert for the Global Water Partnership in Asia regions. She is currently on force majeure due to severe flood happens in Australia. And that's bring me to the importance of having this webinar, which is the importance of speaking about integrated water resource management, as mentioned by Rafi earlier. So when we first consider the topic of the webinar, which is the accelerating progress on integrated water resource management in the Asia Pacific regions, we need to understand first where we are in terms of our progress in the first place. So today I will be presenting on exactly that, about the progress of achievement, progress in achieving the SDG 6.5.1, especially in IWRM, focusing on Asia Pacific regions. So, yeah. This is in line with the Yangon Declaration that made by the leader of Asia Pacific regions at the 3rd Asia Pacific Water Summit in 2017. which committed to achieve the water-related SDGs and target and to facilitating the implementations of Iwrm to achieve water security for sustainable development in the Asia-Pacific regions. And however, approximately 1.1 billion people in Asia alone are severing and living in the water-stressed area. And unless significant action is taken, the number is expected to increase by 40% in 2050. This has also been formalized in the Sustainable Development Goals framework. Reaching the SDG 6 in water and sanitation is the key to achieve other SDGs, in particularly SDG 6.5.1, Integrated Water Resource Management, or Iwrm, which is very cross-cutting in nature. So the I in Iwrm is really the key word, which stands for integrations. It integrates multidisciplinary and multi-stakeholder for all water-related goals, as you can see in the right-hand side of the graph, such as sanitation, hygiene, drinking water, wastewater, and water quality. And Iwrm has 4 dimensions, which we monitor in this SDG 6.5.1, which is enabling environment, institution and participations, management instrument, and financing. In 2020, 58 out of 61 countries in the Asia-Pacific region participated in the Iwrm reporting and monitoring, which is a very positive sign of because these countries have acknowledged the importance of this Iwrm monitoring into their government processes. And under the SDG 6 Iwrm support program in 2020, GWP in collaborations with UNEP-DHI and CapNet supported 16 countries in the regions through our country water partnerships by using a multi-stakeholder approach to conduct this Iwrm reporting and monitoring. There are the proportion of stakeholders who took part in the SDG 6.5.1 consultations in the 16 countries are well represented by a multi-level and sectoral stakeholders. In total, we have almost 800 participants took part in the consultations in the 16 countries. And based on the implementation in the 16 facilitating countries, there are 3 main lessons learned from the monitoring process. The first one is stakeholder from all levels should be engaged, including subnational or basin level participants. The second one, gathering essential data information and ensuring data integrity. And the third one, as we understand that this monitoring is a valuable mechanism for cross-sectoral and multi-level dialogue. This SDG indicator 6.5.1 is measured through a country survey with 33 questions covering the 4 dimensions of Iwrm that I mentioned earlier. And each question is scored on a scale of 0 to 100. And the overall indicator score is an average of the question scores. And one important aspect that I would like to highlight is the country reporting on indicator 6.5.1 is the stakeholder consultation process, because it gathers the data and collectively and stakeholder also collectively agree on score and the reasoning for each question. So I would like to emphasize that the consent between stakeholder in the multi-stakeholder and multidisciplinary are the key to ensure the successful of this monitoring process. And as you can see in this graph, the degree of Iwrm implementation is categorized into 6 levels, from very low to very high level. And in the Asia-Pacific regions, the average degree of Iwrm implementations was medium-high. So this is slightly higher to the global average of 54. And what I also want to emphasize here, even though the score is higher with compared to the global average, you can see that there is a wide variations of status between countries. It's dispersed between low into very high status of Iwrm implementations. And the majority of countries in the regions, about 65% fell in the medium low and medium high category. And I also want to emphasize that of the 4 dimensions, financing is the dimension that is lagging the most behind. So this is where more effort is needed. not only in country level, but you can see also in sub-regional level, there are also great variations between sub-region. And this gives illustration on which country and regions or sub-region are advancing and which require further intervention on the water management. And it also gives an opportunity for close learning between countries and sub-regional collaborations. This graph shows overall score based on each IWRM dimensions. I will not discuss deeply into this graph, but this is also only to show you that we have the data that can be breaking down into 33 elements of IWRM. So these questions or elements can provide informations at different level, and this may give indicator at country and sub-regional level on what elements are still lagging and needed further intervention. For example, I take one from the dimension 1 enabling environment. As you can see, the transboundary arrangement are the elements which are more lagging behind than other elements. And based on this average score of the Asia Pacific countries, it is estimated that if business as usual approach continues, then most countries or the regions level are unlikely to reach the 2030 target. In a sense, the report highlights that we already know what is needed to fully implement IWRM by 2030, and those can boost the achievement of not just SDG 6, but also many other SDGs. And the positive experiences highlighted in this report show that this can be done. And what is needed more than anything else to advance IWRM is political will at highest level possible, both within countries, but also between countries to have a further regional collaborations. Based on this data and analysis, it has also provided a basis for further regional collaborations to take actions on the critical next steps needed to achieve full IWRM implementations by 2030. So the lesson learned, challenges, best practice, and recommendations contained in this report is expected to provide a strategic action pathway to accelerate IWRM implementations. And with that, we have several priority actions for accelerating IWRM in Asia Pacific. The first one is developing, accelerate, and passing full implementation of critical law, harmonize cross-sectoral inter-agency policies, establish, deepen, or expand stakeholder participation from all levels, creating robust, transparent, unified platforms and mechanism for data capture, information sharing, build and strengthen and expand partnership, including with the private sector to unlock new co-financing opportunities, and also increasing revenue for IWRM. And finally, to strengthen regional legal framework, transboundary information sharing, and transboundary water management arrangement. So if you require more information on the report on progress on IWRM in the Asia Pacific regions 2021, you can find it by scanning the barcode on the screen, or you can also click the link that my colleagues will provide in the chat box. So this will end my presentations. I hope this can be useful to set the scene before our further discussions. And now we will hear shortly from two country experience, which is the Philippines and Georgia, to give us inspirations on the initiative and actions that country could implement in mainstreaming IWRM monitoring result in their government processes. So our first presenter is Dr. David Sevio. He is currently Executive Director for National Water Resources Board in the Philippines. And our second presenter is Ms. Vansa Sivzadze. She is currently Senior Specialist at Water Division's Environment and Climate Change Department in the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture of Georgia. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. David to deliver the first presentations. Dr. David, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Louie. Am I clear? Can I be heard?
Yes, we can hear you very clearly.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning or good afternoon to everyone. I am happy to be with you today, and on behalf of the Philippines, we'd like to appreciate the invitation by the Japan Water Forum and the Global Water Partnership for organizing this very important seminar on accelerating progress on IWRM in the Asia Pacific region. So I am happy to share the Philippine experience and lessons learned in conducting the SDG survey in the Philippines. Next slide, please. So on your screen are the agreed key processes undertaken in conducting the Philippine IWRM's assessment survey. Prior to the Philippine IWRM assessment workshop, a new set of questionnaires for NGAs or national government agencies, local government units, river basin organizations, and academic or civil society organizations were customized based on the technical framework of the SDG 6.5.1 IWRM questionnaire. For example, enabling environment, institutions and participation, management instrument, and financing, in order to concretize what is happening in each of the different agencies or entities. This actually helped them see their IWRM-related programs or initiatives as an important input at the national level assessment of IWRM implementation. Google Forms was used as a platform for the online IWRM assessment survey. This helped address the limitations on face-to-face activity brought about by the pandemic and facilitates quick response to the survey. Consolidated response to its questions, including information from key informant interviews and this research, served as basis for rating. Virtual platform was used to conduct the stakeholders consultation. This facilitates a strong and effective platform for participation and communication of distantly placed participants, especially during the pandemic. Google Form was also used as a polling platform for online rating during the consultation. Next slide. So for the participants, of course, we would like to recognize the participants in this processes for coming out with this assessment or results of this assessment survey. The sub-national multi-stakeholder and multi-sectoral e-dialogue on IWRM assessment was participated by 64 representatives from 11 national government agencies, 7 local government units, 10 river basin organizations, 2 academic institutions, 1 private company, and 5 non-government organizations, while 53 representatives from 12 NGAs, 1 LGU, 7 RBOs, 2 academic institutions, 3 private companies, and 5 NGOs participated at the national level. Next slide. So for the lessons learned, first we would like to recognize and express our appreciation to the Global Water Partnership and for supporting this initiative through the Philippine Water Partnership. So the past 2 assessment surveys of IWRM implementation in the Philippines has been successful and actively participated by the major stakeholders. It became a venue for developing shared understanding of IWRM, its nature, focus, purpose, and pillars. The inclusion of a presentation on local and international programs on IWRM during the stakeholders consultation also helps further enrich and expand participants' interest and understanding on how IWRM can be concretized and localized. The use of customized questionnaire helps the participants realize what IWRM-related programs or activities they are currently being undertaken and its importance in the overall success in implementing IWRM in the Philippines. Next slide. The results of the IWRM assessment survey in 2020 were subjected to a thorough review and analysis through the conduct of the first national multi-stakeholder IWRM performance assessment. The overall objective of this assessment is to assist the Philippines in identifying root problems and challenges, as well as alternative solutions to improve IWRM implementation, given the target of nationwide implementation of IWRM by 2030. It is also intended to provide a solid basis for the development of a national IWRM strategic action plan. So the assessment was focused on 4 themes: water for ecosystem and environment, water for people, both for urban and rural areas, water for economic development, which covers water for food and energy, water-related disaster, risk reduction and emergency response, with emphasis on flood and drought. The result of this assessment has been submitted to UNEP as country contribution for the development of the IWRM Global Report. Next slide.
Arden, you have 1 minute to wrap up.
Yeah.
Thank
The
you.
succeeding slides are the current program's direction of Iwrm, continuous conduct of IEC, promoting and encouraging the adoption of Iwrm. Enhancement of management instruments is also one of the priority programs, and to facilitate more reliable water resource assessment. Some of these instrument enhancement programs, next slide. Next slide. Are the conduct of water resource assessment and groundwater vulnerability assessment, and establishment of water resource monitoring, measurement, and data availability. Next slide. On the aspect of National River Basin Master Planning, Climate Improving and Creation of RBOs, a national water security roadmap towards conserving and restoring water to sustain growth has been prepared, as well as the Philippine Water Supply and Sanitation Master Plan, a national action plan to achieve universal access to safe, sufficient, affordable, and sustainable water supply, hygiene, and sanitation by 2030. The Philippine Water Supply Sanitation Master Plan espouses the following 8 priority programs agendas: effective water supply and sanitation sector institution, creating, ensuring effective water supply and sanitation services, strengthening regulatory environment, among others. This is spearheaded by the National Economic Development Authority. You see, these very important initiatives are now currently in progress and ongoing with the consideration and integration of Iwrm approach in these major initiatives of the government. Thank you very much for your attention.
Now we would like to hand over to Ms. Bansa for the presentation from Georgia. Ms. Bansa, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. So I will not introduce myself further, but first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers of this meeting for having me as a panelist in this very important session. Just to provide a very brief overview of the presentation, I will first focus on the reporting process under the SDG 6.5.1 in Georgia in 2020. Then I will focus on the stakeholder engagement in the reporting processes. I will then move to the support under the SDG 6 Iwrm support program that we gained in the reporting process, but also further to support the ongoing reform in Georgia in water resources management. And finally, I will highlight the examples of how SDG 6.5.1 has been integrated into the national policy processes, and I will highlight some of the enablers that have really supported us in this process. So should I share my...
Yes, please.
Okay.
Please, we have difficulties a bit.
Okay.
If you...
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay. That's... Georgia participated in the reporting under the SDG 6.5.1 indicator for the second time in 2020. These are our results. Our final score under the reporting was 44, which is the medium low. And out of the 4 dimensions of the SDG 6.5.1 on integrated water resources management, we had the highest score in the second dimension on institutions and participation. And we had the lowest one in the lowest score in the last dimension on financing. One of the things I really would like to highlight here is that, well, the reporting is not an easy process, since we have to provide scores for each question under the survey instrument of the SDG 6.5.1. And if one institution is responsible for that, and if one institution is solely filling in the survey instrument, it might be biased to that institution, and it might not reflect the real picture on the progress the country has achieved in terms of IWRM implementation. And this is why our key goal was to engage various stakeholders in the reporting to make sure that our final report under the survey instrument reflected the real picture that Georgia has achieved in terms of IWRM implementation. And in this regard, we wanted to facilitate the stakeholder consultation and engagement in the reporting process. And with this objective, we applied to the SDG 6 IWRM support program that is coordinated by the Global Water Partnership under the guidance of UNEP and in collaboration with the UNEP-DHI Center and CAPNet. And we are grateful that we gained this support, and we were able to facilitate stakeholder consultation in August 2020. And in the stakeholder consultation workshop that was conducted by the support of the National Water Partnership as well in Georgia, and in collaboration with the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture of Georgia, various stakeholders participated, coming from different sectors and different backgrounds, including various public institutions such as Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Infrastructure, and also stakeholders from academia, from gender expertise, from the civil society organizations, from regional projects, and also from UNDP office in Georgia. And at the workshop, we presented the whole survey instrument, and we discussed each question and each score, and we agreed upon each score together with the stakeholders that participated. Overall, 26 participants participated in the workshop that was conducted in August 2020. But the consultation process under the reporting was not limited just to the workshop, as throughout the reporting process, we were able to exchange information, exchange emails, phone calls, and have face-to-face meetings with the stakeholders to gain the necessary information to prepare the draft reports. Besides the stakeholder consultation under the reporting process itself, we also used the support gained under the SDG 6 IWRM support program to support the national reform in the water resources management. In particular, there is a draft law prepared on water resources management that is already submitted to the Parliament of Georgia. And after the adoption of the law, river basin management will be established in the country. And this means that in the river basin management and in the preparation of river basin management plans, it is highly important for the local stakeholders and local municipalities to be engaged actively. And we wanted under this support program to support the local stakeholders, local municipalities from 2 river basins in Georgia to increase and enhance their capacities in integrated water resources management. And with this aim, and by the coordination of the National Water Partnership of Georgia in collaboration with the Ministry of Environment, we provided various webinars to the stakeholders, to the national, to the local municipalities on IWRM, on the key principles of IWRM, on the issues related to water resources management, on SDGs, and in particular on SDG 6.5. And this was all done to make sure that they were well informed about the ongoing processes on national and international level, and for them to be able to provide informed input in the river basin management processes. And finally, and what is the most important, 1 minute?
Yes, but it's okay. Thank you for realizing.
Okay. So this is my last slide, and this is, I guess, one of the most important one, since it's not just reporting, but our aim is to achieve the significant process towards the implementation of integrated water resources management. And this is why it was very important for us from the very start to make sure that SDG 6.5.1 and Iwrm implementation was our national priority, and it was included and incorporated within the key national processes and key national policy documents. And in this regard, we mainstreamed the SDG 6.5.1 reporting results at key national meetings. And one of such meetings and one of such instruments that has really helped us was National Policy Dialogue, which is the UNEC instrument through which UNEC supports countries in facilitating stakeholder dialogues and consultations at national level. And national policy dialogues are conducted on yearly basis in Georgia. Various stakeholders participate in national policy dialogues coming from various public institutions, also from academia, NGOs, and different projects. And so our aim was to really mainstream the reporting results of Georgia at the national policy dialogues and gain the support from the stakeholders. With the mainstreaming, actively mainstreaming the SDG 6.5.1, we gained a strong political support and commitment at the national level to implement SDG 6.5.1. And in this regard, this indicator has been nationalized by Georgia in 2021, meaning that Georgia formalized its obligation to, first of all, of course, participate in the global reporting processes, and also to implement the indicator at the national level. And secondly, we were able to integrate the indicator into the key national strategic documents. One is the National Environmental Action Program, which is the main strategic document under the field of environmental protection. And the second one is the higher level strategic document, which is 10-year strategy of government of Georgia. Both of the documents are currently draft versions, which require the public hearing and public discussions. But since the key stakeholders in Georgia are already well aware of this indicator and the reporting processes, we believe that we will have a strong support from them to adopt the documents. To sum up, I think the key takeaway from my presentation would be to engage the stakeholders from various sectors and various backgrounds on every stage of the reporting and not just reporting processes in the national processes related to the SDG indicators. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. David Sevillo, and also Ms. Danza for this very inspiring country sharing. So it makes us realize that this monitoring Iwrm also can bring together all of the stakeholders with different disciplinary backgrounds, and also to mainstream in the government processes. So I really appreciate both of your presentations. And now I would like to hand over to Yumiko Yasuda. She is our Senior Network and Transboundary Specialist at the Global Water Partnerships for our panel discussions. Dr. Yumiko Yasuda, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Luis. And thank you, speakers, for very rich presentations. Now, I would like to move on to the panel discussion, and we have two distinguished panelists, both from UNEP-DHI and Asian Development Bank. That are actually, we've invited these two organizations as they are supporting the assessment of water resource management of countries in the Asia-Pacific region. Particularly UNEP-DHI through the SDG 6.5.1 Iwrm monitoring you just heard about, and ADB on the 5 water security key dimensions through the Asian Water Development Outlook, AUDO. These initiatives are very important, not only in assessing the country to identify their current status of Iwrm water security implementation, but also to collect and integrate relevant data, and it was not previously accessible from one source point. These assessments also allows governments to bring together multi-stakeholders, as you just heard in the case of two countries to discuss the importance of IWRM and good water governance. So this panel discussion is aiming to encourage countries and regional organizations of the Asia-Pacific Water Forum members to understand the urgent action needed at all levels to work towards achieving a full IWRM and good water governance implementation by 2030 to reach SDG 665 in Asia-Pacific region. So now I would like to introduce our two distinguished panelists. Mr. Lance Gore, Principal Water Resource Specialist from the Asia Development Bank, and Paul Glennie, he is a Senior Technical Advisor of the UNEP-DHI Center on the Water and Environment. Welcome, Paul and Lance. Very happy to have you here. Let me start from asking questions to Paul for UNEP-DHI. What kind of support and current initiatives can UNEP-DHI provide to help countries to accelerate IWRM and water security?
Thanks, Yumiko, and good morning and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I just want to start by thanking our representatives from the Philippines and Georgia for sharing their experiences with us. And it really shows the significant efforts that many countries, not just Philippines and Georgia, are making to report on SDG 651 on IWRM, and in turn, what they're getting out of the process. Because we realize it's quite a heavy reporting process involving lots of stakeholders, and people may ask, well, why do we need to have such a heavy process and involve so many different stakeholders and get consensus? But we've really seen the value from these two country examples in doing that thorough reporting process has really formed a good, a solid platform for advancing IWRM implementation in the countries and information sharing amongst the different stakeholders. And what Gavansa mentioned at the end there was that the SDG 6 IWRM support program. So this support program, some of you will have heard of it, others may not have. It's in three main stages. Stage one is what Gavansa was mentioned, mainly around the reporting on the indicator. Stage two is on supporting countries to develop action plans. So building on the reporting, looking at what the key priorities are. Okay, what do we now want to prioritize to, with the limited resources that we have to advance on implementation. And stage three is on supporting countries with the implementation of their identified priorities. So there's a lot of resources available on the SDG 6 IWRM support program website, which is on the GWP website. Although many of the resources have been allocated at this stage, but there's a lot of free guidance materials, and there's a course coming up soon, particularly on this stage two for developing action plans. So hopefully someone can post the link in the chat there, and I encourage countries to go and see what options are available there. And also just to say, even if the country would like more support, although there may not be resources at the moment, we're currently in developing a new phase of the integrated monitoring initiative across the whole of SDG 6. So if we see that there's country demand for more support in this, then it's an argument for us to be able to provide it. Thank you, Yumiko.
Thank you very much, Paul, for really laying out what is really being planned from your side. Very, very encouraging. Now I would like to turn to Len. In relation to particularly the AUDO, the Asia Water Development Outlook, we understand that IWRM and water governance is an important input for improving the water security of the countries in the Asia-Pacific region. Based on the results from AUDO 2020 and listening to the presentation of the three speakers just now, what is the main water governance factors that you consider are still lagging? And what do you consider countries need to make priority in working towards achieving the water security goals? Lance, if you could unmute your microphone, please.
There you go. Thanks, Nicole. Hopefully you can hear me now. Good day to everyone. I'm Lance Gore, Principal Water Resources Specialist at the Asia Development Bank. Thanks for the question, and thank you very much for inviting me to be here on the panel. Very good discussion by everyone, and thank you for the presentations. Asia Development Bank, or ADB, has a publication called the Asia Water Development Outlook. For those who aren't aware of it, this is becoming a flagship document for ADB and also our member countries in measuring, benchmarking their status towards water security. We're currently in the 4th edition. It was published in 2020. First edition came out in 2007. So over the last 4 editions, the methodology has been evolving, but we've been focusing on 5 key dimensions. Those are on rural household water security, economic water security, urban water security, environment, and water-related disaster security. And much like the process that GWP has taken with benchmarking and measuring country status with Iwrm, we use a range of indicators for each of those key dimensions based on available information that is owned by the governments or by international databases to be able to measure the country's progress towards achieving those 5 key dimensions. This document's really starting to take hold on our member countries. They're really starting to see the value of it, and they're participating more and more in each edition for it. And ADB will be starting the process again this year on the next edition, which will be due in 2024, hopefully. Now, water security we see as being an outcome of integrated water resources management. So the work that GWP is doing on SDGs 6.5.1 is really vital, because this is really the activities that go into helping countries to become water secure. And ADEL is really a nice document that complements that and showing their progress towards achieving water security. Now, in the most recent edition, we've also included water governance as being a key input. It's really to me, it's really the water governance facilitates or allows for sustainable management of our water resources. It's the tools that we have, and ADB has taken the OECD's approach to water governance, which includes 12 key principles. And just to quickly rattle those off, those defining roles and responsibilities, management at appropriate scales, policy, coherence, capacity, data, information, financial resources, regulatory frameworks, innovative practices, stakeholder engagement, integrity, trade-offs, and monitoring and evaluation. Now, across those 12 principles, we did a similar questionnaire with our member countries, 48 member countries, to get some results. Now, the key areas there which come back as being the priority actions for addressing water governance in our member countries really is improving integrity, improving trade-offs, stakeholder engagement, and monitoring and evaluation. Now, these aren't all isolated priority action areas, though, and if I can talk briefly about my experience as a water practitioner or water resources management specialist, is that for me the key part that any country can do to improve its water governance and integrated water resources management is to improve its data collection. You know, I've been practicing across Asia region and around the world for many years. And the one thing that we always need when we start looking at projects or programs, whether investment projects or helping governments address the river basin planning, is we need the availability of data. And there's a great paucity of data. And data, in data collection, data storage, data accessibility, quality of the data, transparency of the data. This is all critical to ensuring good IWRM practices and good water governance. And this links into a lot of these priority action areas for our member countries. So if you have good data, then you can start making decisions on trade-offs. If you have data and you have the modeling or decision support tools available, then you can make those decisions on trade-offs. You can start codifying those decisions into regulatory frameworks, and then you can start monitoring and evaluating them. And this has an important feedback loop into being able to manage your water resources. Having good data also leads to stakeholder engagement. So without data, you're really you don't know what you're talking about, So to me, those are the sort of the key points, and those are the priority action areas for our member countries. Thank you, Mika.
Thank you very much, Len. A very important point. I would like to now move on to the Q&A session. So if the tech host could spotlight all the speakers to the stage. And thank you very much to everyone for typing in the questions. There are a couple questions that are related from Walter and Inda. And so I would like to ask these questions to actually everyone, particularly maybe I start from the country speakers to really ask you what kind of interventions, particularly at the regional or sub-regional level, could be helpful in moving forward the gaps that you identify through your IWR monitoring. Maybe I could start from Mr. Sevillo, please,
yeah.
In the Philippines.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I think one of the challenges that we are facing in implementing IWRM is how to address because it's a multi-stakeholder process. It involves a lot of multi-stakeholders, and of course the challenge there how to synchronize the interest of those multi-stakeholders, considering all sectors require the required water in their as a beneficial use. And I think for regional organizations, I think Lance has mentioned here, because one of the challenges also is how to make some reliable and well-informed decisions. And I think our previous decisions are usually banked on sparse data. And I think with this new technology approaches, I think we can have more informed and reliable information that could help all these stakeholders in recognizing the importance of IWRM and of course towards water security. So I think if these regional organizations or approach in doing this as far as the generation or updating of data on water resources management, I think which I don't think it will be available in just one country alone. I think a regional approach in generating or updating those information will be very important.
Thank you very much. The importance of data also was very emphasized by Len. Guvansa, what is your view on what kind of actions at particularly regional, sub-regional level will be useful?
That's a good question. And in our case, so one of the things that was really important that really helped a successful process under the reporting was the facilitation of the stakeholder engagement in the process, in the reporting, and the support from the SDG 6 IWRM support program was really crucial. And in this regard, perhaps the regional projects also can support countries in facilitating the national dialogues and stakeholder consultations. For instance, national policy dialogues that I've mentioned in my presentation is really important also in this regard. And also one of the things that was really helpful for us was the training that was provided by the Global Water Partnership and CAPNet for the focal points for SDG 6.5.1, and it was really crucial for us to really understand the key terms and key concepts under the survey instrument for us then to be able to facilitate the stakeholder consultation process and explain the process and the survey instrument to the stakeholders.
Thank you very much. Perhaps just a quick last question on the same question to Paul. what initiative do you think that consider would be the useful to promote to support regional sub-regional collaboration on this?
Thanks, Yumiko, and sorry I dropped out for a couple of minutes there, so I didn't hear the previous two responses. But I think the sub-regional level is really important here. Looking at the neighboring countries with similar levels of development and similar challenges related to water resources, maybe. There's some activities happening in South Asia region now, in the GWP South Asia region, and also in Southeast Asia region. And I think these kind of more local level, especially with the regional organizations, the relevant regional sub-regional bodies, whether that be 4, 5, 6, up to 10 countries maybe, that can really focus on some harmonized planning and harmonized either financing or supporting countries to improve their systems or to access and finally maybe from the various development banks, ESCAP, for example. So really supporting each other to build on the various initiatives that those different organizations are running. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Paul. And finally, I will turn to Les, just if you could give me a 1 minute feedback on this point.
Yeah, no, regional dialogue is important for advocacy, knowledge sharing, awareness. It's really important that countries can come together, practitioners can come together and share their stories of how they've tackled issues and overcome them. As a development bank, we get involved with that on a regular basis. We have annual water weeks. We have, I think every 3 years, we have the Asia Water Forum, and other various mechanisms that we support that. But we also, at a project levels, we also encourage on our projects that we do capacity building and knowledge sharing across the region. So in the different regions that we do, and also north-south learnings between the countries as well. So it's very important that these stories are shared and ways to overcome issues are addressed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very rich suggestions from everyone. And I would now like to conclude the panel discussion and the Q&A. I would like to thank all of everyone for a really active discussion. And I would now like to introduce my colleague Fanny Wedapuditama, who is the regional coordinator of GWP Southeast Asia, and also representing the GWP Pan-Asia region that includes China, Southeast Asia, South Asia, and Central Asia and Caucasus in this webinar. To tell us, he will tell us about the next step. Now, listening to all of these interventions, Fanny, please tell us what's the next step.
Yeah, thank you, Yumiko. I hope you can hear.
Yes.
My voice, yeah, clearly. So, hi everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share our thoughts regarding the concrete action in advancing SDG 6.5.1 in Asia Pacific. So, based on the presentation and the discussion that we just had, I would like to propose 4 concrete actions that hopefully will be useful for all of us. So, yeah, next slide, please. Thank you, Luis. So, sorry. So, the first concrete action, if we are hearing about the discussion that you just heard before, some issues related to data and information also came up. So, our first proposed concrete action is related to the data and information consolidation at country or even basin level if necessary. So whether we are focusing on Iwrm implementation or water security in overall, we need data and information to know where we are against our goals as evidence to support how we decide to move forward. Now, learning from the multi-stakeholder consultation that GWP facilitated for SDG 6.5.1 survey in 2017, especially that time from Cambodia, we learned that there is a need to support countries in collecting data and information in completing the global monitoring on SDG 6.5.1 survey. So before the survey itself. So I believe this is also the same case with Audo when we are collecting all the data that we need to put together to provide the analysis on water security in every country. Now, getting the data and information is not easy, as already mentioned. So this is why before the SDG 6.5.1 global monitoring in 2020, just 2 years ago, before it started, GWP Southeast Asia, through the SDG 6 support program that was mentioned by Paul, we provided support for all the countries in Southeast Asia, not all the countries, but 6 countries in Southeast Asia: Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, to collect first the data and information. So it will help us to do a better facilitation during the multi-stakeholder consultation process to complete the survey. Now, the availability of data information partly contributes to the increase of the country scores between 2017 and 2020. So it's partly contributing to that. Now, just to share with everyone, we are very happy also to hear that our friends in Malaysia government actually now is currently developing Iwrm portal initiative to consolidate data and information related to SDG 6.5.1. So we hope other countries will also follow this good example. So when we have the next round of the monitoring process in 2024, we would, during the discussion with the consultation, with the multi-stakeholder, we can do it in a much better way. And we can, of course, hopefully that will improve also the scores partly. So I think the saying of we cannot manage what we do not measure, I think this is simply true. So this is for the first action. Next slide, please. So for the second concrete action, we propose for us, everybody, okay, to come together and facilitate the alignment of action between action on the ground to break down this approach of working in silos and to create higher impact. So many are actually already contributing to Iwrm implementation and therefore accelerating the achievement of water security goals. However, many of these actions are not recognized or under the radar. So the first rule of the game in collaboration is to know who is doing what and where and when and so forth. Once we know all this information, then we can decide how to work together. Now, GWP is currently, GWP Southeast Asia, together with the other GWP from China, KASENA, and South Asia, now is developing an initiative called Integrated Water Security Open Program that has 2 components. The first component is about action platform, and the second one is the support facility. Now, for this concrete action, this multi-stakeholder alignment, action alignment, we just want to share with you the information about the action platform. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this action platform will be able to help to map the actions on the ground. And based on that information, we can facilitate the learning exchange and develop and facilitate the coordination and alignment mechanism. And ultimately, we can facilitate the consolidated planning and budgeting for water security program at various levels. Now, we should address this problem of working in silos once and for all. And let's work together at scale. And this is why it relates to the next concrete action that we propose. We want to work in scale. So, yeah, next slide, please. So, the third concrete action is focusing on developing a regional joint program. We have countries already committed to the implementation of SDG, and also countries also committed with the Asia Pacific Water Summit Declaration. In fact, we are going to have, as Mr. Rafi already mentioned in the beginning, that we are going to have this Asia Pacific Water Summit in April. So these commitments are our precious capital to move forward at scale, right? Because countries are already committed. Now, through this regional joint program that we are proposing, we should be able to monitor more accurately the progress of the SDG and the Asia Pacific Water Summit Declaration, for example, of the implementation of the declaration also. So it is also very important if we have this regional program, joint program, it is going to help us to keep the momentum after the monitoring process itself. Now, of course, this regional joint program will need a lot of resources, which is why we come to the fourth concrete action. Next slide, please. So the fourth concrete action that we propose is to establish this multi-trust fund at the regional level to support this regional joint program that we mentioned before. Now, countries that are committed, donors, and other funding partners can contribute to this multi-trust fund support. So not only the organization on the ground that are joining forces, but also the donors and financial partners, they can also join forces. So this is also to avoid any redundancy of the program in the region that's supporting the same vision or the same goal. Now, in terms of timeline, these four concrete actions are already in the urgent stage. We need to start working as soon as possible. So it may not be an easy thing, but I believe this is the right thing to do. So I will end my proposal for concrete action, and thank you very much for everybody. And I will hand over to Mr. Rafi for the closing remarks. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Fanny. I think if you can put up that slide, Yumiko, that you had right at the beginning about the concluding. Yeah, okay, right. Thank you. So we've come to the end of a very fascinating exercise, which explored the different aspects of partnership. And it's important to emphasize right at the beginning that the road to SDG 6 has to pass through SDG 17, which is not often mentioned, but it's crucial. And SDG 17 is about partnerships, collaboration, and cooperation, which is what we have been trying to do for these past 60 minutes. And at the conclusion of this, the GWP is going to pass on to the APWF its recommendations to take forward to the political leaders of our region, things to do and to include in the declaration. So I'll just read out, I won't go through each of them in detail. Political will at the highest level possible, absolutely. National and subnational governments, yeah, exactly. Academic, civil society and private sector, regional commissions and development partners. What this will mean is two things. One is, as mentioned by Lance, the importance of data, because that is an instrument to build trust, and trust is required if any of this is to happen. So the main thing is build trust on agreed parameters, and the agreement of parameters is through dialogue and discussions, as has been discussed before. So thank you all very much for your contributions. And so I emphasize again SDG 17, which is about cooperation, partnerships, and collaboration. Let it continue. GWP is a key player in that, and so is the Asian Development Bank, because these are multi-stakeholder and multilateral organizations which can bring people together from different countries, different situations. Absolutely important for us to have dialogue, to build trust, and to go forward. So thank you all very, very much. If you have some burning questions that you felt were not considered, do not despair. You can write to the organizers, you can write to Yumiko or to Louise, and they will pass it on to the various people for their answers. So thank you all very much, and a very good afternoon to you.
So thank you so much for wrapping up very nicely and concisely. And I also thank you to all the presenter and Yumiko Yasuda-san for moderator, and also Luis for coordinating everything for organizing this successful webinar. And I also thank you for all the audience to kindly listening to our webinar. So our webinar is recorded and we will share it through YouTube. So we will inform you the URL for listening this webinar again through email tomorrow. And you can also find the presentation document from our website, our APWF website. And we are very looking forward to seeing you next time through our APWF webinar and the pre-session with the post-Asia Pacific Water Summit before April. So we are very, very looking forward to your continuous support and collaboration with us. Thank you so much. See you next time.